Toa Te Ching by Lao Tzu, translated by R B BLAKNEY. 1. There are ways, but the way is uncharted. There are names, but not nature in words. Nameless indeed is the source of creation, but things have a mother, and she has a name. The secret waits for insight, of eyes unclouded by longing. Those who are bound by desire see only the outward container. These two come, paired but distinct, by their names. Of all things profound, say that their pairing is deepest. The gate is the root of the world. 2. Since the world points up beauty as such, there is ugliness too. If goodness is taken as goodness, wickedness enters as well. For is and is not come together. Hard and easy are complementary. Long and short are relative. High and low are comparative. Pitch and sound make harmony. Before and after are a sequence. Indeed, the wise man's office is to work by being still. He teaches not by speech, but by accomplishment. He does for everything, neglecting none. Their life he gives to all, possessing none, and what he brings to pass depends on no one else. As he succeeds, he takes no credit, and just because he does not take it, credit never leaves him. 3. If those who are excellent find no preferment, the people will cease to contend for promotion. If goods that are hard to obtain are not favored, the people will cease to turn robbers or bandits. If things much desired are kept under cover, disturbance will cease in the minds of the people. The wise man's policy, accordingly, will be to empty people's hearts and minds, to fill their bellies, weaken their ambition, give them sturdy frames, and always so, to keep them uniformed without desire, and knowing one's not venturing to act. Be still while you work, and keep full control over all. 4. The way is a void, used but never filled. An abyss it is, like an ancestor, from which all things come. It blunts sharpness, resolves tangles, it tempers light, subdues turmoil. A deep pool it is, never to run dry. Whose spring it may be, I do not know. It is like a preface to God. 5. Is then the world unkind? And does it treat all things like straw dogs, used in magic rites? The wise man too, is he unkind? And does he treat the folk like straw dogs, made to throw away? Between the earth and sky, the space is like a bellows, empty but unspent. When moved, its gift is copious. Much talk means much exhaustion. Better far it is to keep your thoughts. 6. The valley spirit is not dead. They say it is the mystic female. Her gateway is, they further say, the base of earth and heaven. Constantly, and so forever, use her without labor. 7. The sky is everlasting, and the earth is very old. Why so? Because the world exists not for itself. It can and will live on. The wise man chooses to be last, and so becomes the first of all. Denying self, he too is saved. For does he not fulfillment find in being an unselfish man? 8. The highest goodness, water-like, does good to everything and goes unmurmuring to places men despise. But so is close in nature to the way. If the good of the house is from land, or the good of the mind is depth, or love is the virtue of friendship, or honesty blesses one's talk, or in government, goodness and order, or in business, skill is admired, or the worth of an act lies in timing, then peace is the goal of the way by which no one ever goes astray. To take all you want is never as good as to stop when you should. Scheme and be sharp, and you'll not keep it long. One never can guard his home when it's full of jade and fine gold. Wealth, power, and pride bequeath their own doom. When fame and success come to you, then retire. This is the ordained way. 10. Can you govern your animal soul? Hold to the one and never depart from it. Can you throttle your breath down to the softness of breath in a child? Can you purify your mystic vision and wash it until it is spotless? Can you love all your people? Rule over the land without being known? Can you be like a female and passively open and shut heaven's gates? What the fuck? Can you keep clear in your mind the four quarters of earth and not interfere? Quicken them, feed them. Quicken, but do not possess them. Act and be independent. Be the chief, but never be the lord. This describes the mystic virtue. 11. 30 spokes will converge in the hub of a wheel, but the use of the cart will depend on the part of the hub that is the void. With a wall all around, a clay bowl is molded, but the use of the bowl will depend on the part of the bowl that is void. Cut out windows and doors in the house as you build, but the use of the house will depend on the space in the walls that is the void. So advantage is had from whatever is there, but usefulness rises from whatever is not. 12. The 5 colors darken the eye. The 5 sounds will deafen the ear. The 5 flavors weary the taste. Chasing the beasts of the field will drive a man mad. The goods that are hard to procure are hobbles that slow walking feet. So the wise man will do what his belly dictates, and never the sight of his eyes. Thus he will choose this, but not that. 13. Quote, favor this disgrace, brings trouble with it. High rank, like self, involves acute distress. End quote. What does that mean to say that, quote, favor like grace brings trouble with it, end quote, when favor is bestowed on one of low degree? Trouble will come with it. The loss of favor, too, means trouble for that man. This, then, is what is meant by, quote, favor, like disgrace, brings trouble with it, end quote. What does it mean to say that, quote, rank, like self, involves acute distress, end quote? I suffer most because of me and selfishness. If I were selfless, then what suffering would I bear? In governing the world, let rule entrusted by to him who treats his rank as if it were his soul. Would sovereignty can be committed to that man who loves all people as he loves himself? 14. They call it elusive, and say that one looks, but it never appears. They say that indeed it is rare, since one listens, but never a sound, subtle, they call it, and say that one grips it, but never gets hold. These 3 complaints amount to only one, which is beyond all resolution. At rising, it does not illumine. At setting, no darkness ensues. It stretches far back to what nameless estate which existed before the creation. Describe it as form, yet unformed, as shape that is still without shape, or say it is vagueness confused. One meets it, and it has no front. One follows, there is no rear. If you hold ever fast to that most ancient way, you may govern today. Call truly that knowledge of primal beginnings, the clue to the way. 15. The excellent masters of old, subtle mysterious, mystic acute, were much too profound for their times. Since they were not then understood, it is better to tell how they looked. Like men crossing streams in the winter. How cautious! As if all around there were danger. How watchful! As if they were guests on every occasion. How dignified! Like ice just beginning to melt. Self-effacing! Like a wood block untouched by a tool. How sincere! Like a valley awaiting a guest. How receptive! Like a torrent that rushes along. And so turbid! Who, runningly dirty, comes clean like still waters. Who, being quiet, moves others to fullness of life. It is he who embraces the way, is not greedy, who endures wear and tear without needing renewal. 16. Touch ultimate emptiness. Hold steady and still. All things work together. I have watched them reverting, and have seen how they flourish, and return again, each to his roots. This, I say, is the stillness, a retreat to one's roots. Or better yet, return to the will of God, which is, I say, to constancy. The knowledge of constancy I call enlightenment, and say that not to know it is blindness that works evil. But when you know what eternally is so, you have stature, and stature means righteousness, and righteousness is kingly, and kingliness divine, and divinity is the way which is final. Dumb. Then, though you die, you shall not perish. 17. As for him who is highest, the people just know he is there. His deputies cherished and praised of the third. They are frightened, the fourth. They despise and revile. You trust people less than enough. Some of them never trust you. He is aloof, as if his talk were priced beyond the purchasing. But once his project is contrived, the folk will want to say of it, quote, "Of course, we did it ourselves." End quote. 18. The mighty way declined among the folk, and then came kindness and morality. Then wisdom and intelligence appeared. They brought with them a great hypocrisy. The six relations were no more at peace, so codes were made to regulate our homes. The fatherland grew dark, confused by strife. Official royalty became the style. 19. Get rid of the wise men. Put out the professors. Then people will profit 100-fold over. Away the kind ones. Those righteous men too. And let people return to the graces of homes. Root out the artisans. Banish the profiteers. And bandits and robbers will not come to plunder. But if these three prove not enough to satisfy the mind and heart, more irrelevant then, let there be a visible simplicity of life, embracing unpretentious ways and small self-interest, and poverty of coveting. 20. Be done with rote learnings, and its attendant vexations. For is there distinction of a, quote, yes, from a, quote, yeah, comparable now to the gulf between good and evil? Quote, what all men fear, I too must fear, end quote. How barren and pointless a thought! The revel of multitudes at the feast of great sacrifice, or up on the terrace, at carnival in spring, leave me, alas, unmoved, alone, like a child that has never smiled. Lazily I drift, as though I had no home. All others have enough to spare. I am the one left out. I have the mind of a fool, muddled and confused. When common people scintillate, alone make shadows. Vulgar folks are sharp and knowing. Only I am melancholy. Restless like the ocean, blown about, I cannot stop. Other men can find employment, but I am stubborn. I am mean. Alone, I am indifferent, because I prize and seek my sustenance from the mother. 21. The omnipresent virtue will take shape, according only to the way. The way itself is like some thing, seen in a dream, elusive, evading one. In it are images, elusive, evading one. In it are things like shadows in the twilight. In it are essences, subtle but real, embedded in truth. From of old until now, under names without end, the first, the beginning is seen. How do I know the beginning of all? What is nature, may be. By these. 22. The crooked shall be made straight, and the rough places plain. The pools shall be filled, and the worn renewed. The needy shall receive, and the rich shall be perplexed. So the wise man cherishes the one as a standard to the world. Not displaying himself, he is famous. Not asserting himself, he is distinguished. Not boasting his powers, he is effective. Taking no pride in himself, he is chief, because he is no competitor. No one in the world can compete with him. The saying of the men of old is not in vain. Quote, the crooked shall be made straight. End quote. To be perfect, return to it. 23. Sparing indeed its nature of its talk. The whirlwind will not last the morning out. The cold burst end before the day is done. What is it that behaves itself like this? The earth and sky? And if it be that these cut short their speeches, how much more yet should man? If you work by the way, you will be of the way. If you work through its virtue, you will be given the virtue. Abandon either one, and both abandon you. Gladly then the way receives those who choose to walk in it. Gladly too its power upholds those who choose to use it well. Gladly with abandon greet those who to abandon drift. Little faith is put in them, whose faith is small. 24. On tiptoe your stance is unsteady. Long strides make your progress unsure. Show off, and you get no attention. Your boasting will mean you have failed. Asserting yourself brings no credit. Be proud, and you never will lead. To persons of the way, these traits can only bring distrust. They seem like an extra food for parasites, so those who choose the way will never give them place. 25. Something there is, whose veiled creation was before the earth and sky began to be, so silent, so aloof, so alone, it changes not, nor fails, but touches all. Conceive it as the mother of the world. I do not know its name. A name for it is, quote, way, end quote. Pressed for designation, I call it great. Great means outgoing, outgoing, far-reaching, return. The way is great. The sky is great. The earth is great. The king also is great. Within the realm, these four are great. The king but stands for one of them. Man conforms to the earth conforms to the sky conforms to the way conforms to its own nature. 26. The heavy is founded for the light, so quietness is master of the deed. The wise man, though he travels all the day, will not be separated from his goods, so even if the scene is glorious to view, he keeps his place at peace above it all. For how can one who rules 10,000 chariots give up to lighter moods, as all the world may do? If he is trivial, his ministers are lost. If he is strenuous, there is no master then. 27. A good runner leaves no tracks. A good speech has no flaws to censure. A good computer uses no tallies. A good door is well shut without bolts and cannot be opened. A good knot is tied without rope and cannot be loosened. The wise man is always good at helping people, so that none are cast out. He is always good at saving things, so that none are thrown away. This is called applied intelligence. Surely the good man is the bad man's teacher, and the bad man is the good man's business. If the one does not respect his teacher, or the other doesn't love his business, his error is very great. This is indeed an important secret. 28. Be aware of your masculine nature, but By keeping the feminine way, you shall be to the void like a canyon, where the virtue eternally abides, and go back to become as a child. Be aware of the white all around you, but remembering the black that is there. You shall be the world like a tester, whom the virtue eternal and nearing redirects to the infinite past. Be aware of your glory and honor, but in never relinquishing shame, you shall be to the world like a valley, where virtue eternal, sufficient, sends you back to the virginal block. When the virginal block is asunder, and is made into several tools, to the end of the wise man directs, they become then his chief officers. For, quote, the master himself does not carve, end quote. 29. As for those who would take the whole world to tinker, it is they see it. I observe that they never succeed, for the world is a sacred vessel, not made to be altered by man. The tinker will spoil it. Usurpers will lose it, for indeed there are things that must move ahead, while others must lag, and some that feel hot, while others feel cold, and some that are strong, while others are weak, and vigorous ones, with others worn out. So the wise man discards extreme inclinations to make sweeping judgments, or to a life of excess. 30. To those who would help the ruler of men, means of the way, let him not, with his militant might, try to conquer the world. This tactic is like to recoil. For where armies have marched, there do braveries spring up. Where great hosts are impressed, years of hunger and evil ensue. The good man's purpose, once obtained, he stops at that. He will not press for victory. His point once made, he does not boast, or celebrate the goal he gained, or proudly indicate the spoils. He won the day because he must, but not by force or violence. What things his age decline in strength, you may say, suits the way, and not to suit the way is earthly death. Dumb. 31. Weapons at best are tools of bad omen, loathed and avoided by those of the way. In the usage of men of good breeding. What the fuck does that mean? Honor is had at the left. Good omens belong on the left. Bad omens belong on the right. And warriors press to the right. Yet the general stands at the right, his lieutenant is placed at the left. So the usage of men of great power follows that of the funeral rite. Weapons are tools of bad omen. By gentlemen not to be used, but when it cannot be avoided, they use them with calm and restraint, even in victory's hour. These tools are unlovely to see, but those who admire them truly are men who, in murder, delight. As for those who delight to do murder, it is certain they never can get from the world what they sought when ambition urged them to power and rule. A multitude slain, and their death is a matter for grief and for tears. The victory after a conflict is a theme for a funeral rite. 32. The way eternal has no name. A block of wood untooled, though small, may still excel the world, and if the king and nobles could retain its potency for good, then everything would freely give alliance to their rule. The earth and sky then conspire to bring the sweet dew down, and eventually it would be given to folk without constraining power. Creatures come to be with order's birth, and once they had appeared, came also knowledge of repose, and with that was security. In this world, compare those of the way to torrents that flow into river and sea. 33. It is wisdom to know others. It is enlightenment to know oneself. The conqueror of men is powerful. The master of himself is strong. It is great to be content. It is willful to force one's way on others. Okay. Endure it to keep one's place. Long life is to die and not perish. Dumb. 34. Oh, the great way overflows and spreads on every side. All beings come from it, no creature is denied. But what, having called them forth, it calls not one its own. It feeds and clothes them all, and will not be their lord. Without desire always, it seems of slight import, yet nonetheless, in this its greatness still appears. When they return to it, no creature meets a lord. The wise man, therefore, while he is alive, will never make a show of being great, and that is how his greatness is achieved. 35. Once grasp the great form without form, and you roam where you will, with no evil to fear, calm peace at ease. At music and viands, the wayfarer stops, but the way, when declared, seems thin and so flavorless, it is nothing to look at and nothing to hear, but used, it will prove inexhaustible. 36. What is to be shrunken is first stretched out, what is to be weakened is first made strong, what will be thrown over is first raised up, what will be withdrawn is first bestowed. This indeed is subtle light. The gentle way will overcome the hard and strong. As fish should not get out of pools, the realm's edge tools should not be shown to anybody. 37. The way is always still, at rest, and yet does everything that's done. If then the king and nobles could retain its potency for good, the creatures all would be transformed. But if, the change once made in them, they still incline to do their work, I should restrain them, then, by means of that unique original simplicity, found in the virgin block which brings disinterest, with stillness in its train, and so an ordered world. 38. A man of highest virtue will not display it on his own. His virtue then is real. Low virtue makes one miss, no chance, to show his virtue off. His virtue then is not. High virtue is at rest. It knows no need to act. Low virtue is busyness, pretending to accomplishment. Compassion at its best, consistent in honest deeds. Morality at best is something done, after thought. High etiquette, when acted out without response from others, constrains a man to bear his arms and make them do their duty. Truly, once the way is lost, there comes then virtue. Virtue lost, comes then compassion. After that morality, and when that's lost, there's etiquette, the husk of all good faith, the rising point of anarchy. For knowledge is, they say, the Confucius doctrine come to flower, but better yet, it is the starting point of stillness. So once full grown, a man will take the meat and not the husk, the fruit, not the flower. Rejecting one, he takes the other. 39. These things in ancient times received the one. The sky obtained it, and was clarified. The earth received it, and was settled firm. The spirits got it, and were energized. The valleys had it, filled to overflow. All things as they partook, it came alive. The nobles and the kings imbibed the one, in order that the realm might upright one. Such things were then accomplished by the one. Without its clarity, the sky might break. Except it were set firm, the earth might shake. Without their energy, the gods would pass. Unless kept full, the valleys might go dry. Except for life, all things would pass away, unless the one did lift and hold them high. The nobles and the kings might trip and fall. The humble folk support their mighty ones. They are base on which the highest rest. The nobles and the kings speak of themselves as, quote, orphans, and, quote, desolate, and, quote, needy ones, end quote. Does this not indicate that they depend upon the lowly people for support? Truly, a cart is more than the sum of its parts. Better to rumble like rocks than to tinkle like jade. 40. The moment of the way is a return. In weakness lies its major usefulness. From what is, all the world of things was born, but what is sprang in turn from what is not.